Hello and welcome back to Yarn Tea and Books. My name is Tasha, and along with my husband, we are the humans behind Frogget Yarn's hand-dyed yarns and Mobile Yarn Truck. Welcome if you are a new viewer. Welcome back to all of our returning viewers. We're so happy that you're all here. This week is going to be a bit different. We're not going to do a typical podcast. When I asked what were some different ideas for content that you wanted to see on the show, already there's a heat flash. Sorry about that. So when I asked about different ideas for things that you'd like to see in addition to regular podcasts, someone had said they'd love to see kind of like a what's in my bag / knitting essentials for me. So I thought, okay, that's a fun idea. So I gathered all of the things that are essential to me and my making: knitting, crochet, and spinning. That's what I do the most. And so I've gathered the things that I use all the time that are a non-negotiable in my bag, and I'm going to share them with you. I've gathered a few tricks and tips over the years, and I'll pass those along, and hopefully they will help you out as well. So we're going to discuss my essentials for my knitting bag / projects, my crochet when I'm doing that, and my spinning. So I hope that you can gather some tips and tricks from this as well. First, we will start with Mugwatch. And I've got my cute little sheepy mug from Golden Earth Designs. That's Sarah, and I think I just ordered this in one of her online updates. I did just make a fresh cup of hot tea, but I'm very warm. It's decaf chai, so that can just sit there because I am very warm this morning. It is disgustingly hot here today in South Central Pennsylvania. I have no plans to go outside other than to take the dogs out. So let's start with knitting because that's probably the most popular. We'll start with what I always keep in my project bags, what I take with me when I'm traveling. But first we'll start with what is beside me on my side table. So in my living room, Brian and I sit on a reclining love seat, and I have a table beside me and a basket on the floor where I keep my projects. But on my table, I have a dish. It's a cute little Polish pottery dish, and it is divided. And in this dish is everything that I would need while I'm sitting there. So I don't have to root through my bag for a notions pouch to look for things that I need. So, you know, as knitters, as makers, we accumulate a lot of these things. So always a tape measure, always a tiny pair of scissors. There's always stitch stoppers. There's various stitch markers. I love these bulb pins. There's always a chapstick. There's always a tiny crochet hook if I have to catch a stitch. There's always a tube with my tapestry needles. So yeah, just kind of everything you could think of that you need. I even have a row counter if I need that. Yeah, there's another like stitch saver. This is a dual tipped crochet hook to catch a stitch. So that all lives in this bowl. So everything that I would put in a notions pouch to take with me is in this bowl, plus a million other things like T-pins. Why would I have a T-pin? Oh, to undo my needles, my Kindle remote, like to change the pages. Anyway, that's all in here. Stitch stoppers of every kind. It all lives in this bowl, as well as the little rubber pad to also help lock my needles. All in there. That stays on my table all the time. I'm going to put that down so I don't knock it off the end. But what's in my knitting bag? So I have learned over the years, when I first started out knitting, I had like one notions pouch. And I think it was actually this one, a little bit larger. And I just had everything in here. And I would throw this in my project bag if I was leaving the house, and it was always in that project bag. The problem is when I started having more than one project on the go, if I didn't grab this out of whatever bag it was in to put in the bag that I was taking with me, then I didn't have my notions with me, right? So I think as knitters, you also accumulate a lot of these pouches. I have a lot of this size, right? These are the perfect little notions pouch to just throw in your bag, put your essentials in it, and then you can have one for all of your whips. So then you don't need to have everything. So what is a non-negotiable in my notions pouch? I always have a tin of like the tiny stuff. So your tapestry needle, an emergency row gauge or needle gauge, but I also have a needle gauge ring. So if I don't have one of those, not a big deal. A little bit of washi or highlighter tape, some snips, emergency stitch markers, also emergency like locking stitch markers. That all lives in the tin. Now these were tins that we had made up a few years ago, but I've also learned that if you're at a flea market or an antiques mall, you can buy cute little tins and fill them yourself. This one has all of the same things in. All of the things that I would need, right? In this tin. My dad is a collector of little tins, and I'll pick them up for him every now and then for Father's Day or his birthday. And when I was picking one up, I saw this, and it's about the same size. And I thought, well, this is really nice. It holds everything that I need, and I can throw that in my notions pouch, and everything's not in there just kind of rolling around, right? So you can pick up those tins. You can also get them, like you can use an empty Altoids tin or any kind of little container. It doesn't even have to be a tin. It could be a little plastic container. Put all your little bits in there. Then there's also, I always keep some form of paper. It could be a tiny notepad. It could be a Post-it notepad, something like that. I always have some kind of row counter. This one just happens to be one that you turn the numbers. I always have a pencil. I always have a highlighter, obviously a tape measure, and some try-it-on tubing. Always, because you never know how much knitting you're going to get done when you're traveling, and you may need to hold some stitches, and you may need to hold a lot of stitches, and you may not have extra yarn. So I always have a little tin of try-it-on tubing in my notions pouch. And then each of these notions pouches, I keep them already stocked. They're all ready to go, right? I've got multiples of them. Sometimes I got this one in an advent. This one is also all ready to go. So when I start a new project, and I've picked my project bag, and I'm putting my yarn in, and I'm putting my needles in and my pattern, I just grab a pouch. I know everything I need is already in that pouch, and it just goes in the bag. That way, no matter what bag I choose to take with me in the car when I leave the house, all of my notions are there. I don't have to be like, oh shoot, I forgot my notions pouch and now I can't do X, Y, or Z. So if you're able, like I said, as makers, we're collecting this stuff. Like you get them in swag bags, like the tape measures. I have a bajillion of them. I actually have a bowl of tape measures. As a vendor, we were getting them in our vendor packs, or they just come randomly in so many things. So I keep a bowl of them right here. And so yeah, so I keep that bowl of tape measures. I also have baskets and bowls of a ton of extra stitch markers, the stitch stoppers. I always have Post-it notes or little tiny notebooks, you name it. But anyway, that's essential number one. I always have multiple notions pouches packed and ready to go. Then I just grab one, pop it in my knitting bag, it's ready to go. Number two, I always go through the pattern. So after I've done my gauge swatch, if I need to, I'll go through the pattern and see all of the sizes of needles that the pattern calls for. And I will pull every needle that I need to complete that project and put it in my knitting bag. Put it in my notions pouch so they don't get lost. The needle, the cord, I use interchangeables, everything ready to go. That way, when I get to the next part of my pattern, say I finish the body and it's time to do sleeves or it's time to do ribbing, I don't need to stop and say, oh shoot, I don't have the smaller needle that I need. I already have it in my notions pouch. So the other knitting essential for me is this needle organizer. I think it's by Atomic Freedom. That's what's on the back. Brian got me this for Christmas a few Christmases ago. He took me to the Magpie Fibers flagship store. It's semi-local to us. It's just down in Frederick, which is about an hour away. He took me there one year right at Christmas and said, you can get whatever you want. So I had picked out some yarn and I think like a couple of candles, and I was eyeing these. These are not inexpensive. It's waxed canvas. This is leather, and this adjusts. And at the end of the trip, he went over and he grabbed the one I was looking at and he added it to my basket. So when you undo the buckle, it opens up like this, and all of my needles and my cords, there are various pockets everywhere. All of my needles and my cords live in this. There's also an extra little like zippy notions pouch for all of your like T-pins and the end stoppers. So if you have to take a needle off, you have the stoppers. There's a needle gauge. All of that stays in there. And this flap folds over to keep your needles in, and it just folds up. And so every single needle that I need or own is in this pouch. This usually just stays on my knitting cart in the living room. When I need my needles, I pull them out of here. I pull the tips, I pull the cords, I put them all together. They go in my pouch for that project, which then goes in the project bag. This was also what I took when we traveled to Scotland, because I didn't know, like I had projects, but I also knew that I wanted to buy yarn and start a project while we were on that trip. And I did not know what kind of needle I was going to want. And I only use Chow Goose. It's the only needle I like. I've tried many, many, many different types of needles in my 20 plus years of knitting. I don't like acrylics. I don't like plastic. I don't like wood. I don't like bamboo. I love my Chow Goose. So these are my number one knitting essential, my Chow Goose. If I am making something that is like potentially more slippery of a fiber, like has silk or something in it, I also have the Chow Goo Forte set. So I still get my metal tips, but the center is, I think it's like wood. So if I need a little more grip, I will use these. I still get my Chow Goo tips, but this is less slippery than the metal. So that is essential number 2. I also can never read the numbers. So that is also in its own case. These do not get used a lot. I will reach for these, again, if it's a slipperier yarn, or if for whatever reason, I can't find the size that I need in here. I have multiple tips of every single size. I know not everybody has that luxury. We used to sell needles in the truck. So every time that I would make a needle order for the truck, my distributor was also a Chow Goo distributor. So I would just add what I needed and or wanted to each wholesale order. So I was able to accumulate a lot of needles and a lot of extra cords while we had that account with our distributor. So that I have, especially of the sizes that I know I'm always reaching for. So basically like a 4 to a 7. I probably have at least 4 to 5 sets of tips for every one of those sizes. It's what I use the most. It's my range of yarn weights. Yeah. So if for some reason all of my whips are using like say a 5 and I start another whip and I need a 5, I'll pull that. But those are my biggest knitting essential. My Chow Goos, they're my favorite needle. I don't use anything else. And the organization for this is just phenomenal. Everything fits. It's not heavy. It's still small enough that you could put that in your main knitting bag. I packed this in my checked baggage for the trip, which made me very nervous. But yeah, if you love interchangeables, I highly recommend some kind of organizer that's compact, that you can grab and go, especially for a long trip and you don't know when you might need a different kind of needle. So also, yes, also, I can recommend washi tape, any washi tape. Washi tape is something that is easily removable. Like it's sticky, but it's not like regular tape. So you can put it on your pattern to mark your row, lift it off, move it down, lift it off. So I always have washi tapes available, mostly for my sock project bags. So let's do that next. My sock project bags also have their own little pouch. And I also have a bunch of extra of these that I keep stocked and ready to just throw in my sock project bag because I don't need all that extra stuff. So what's in my sock notions pouch? I have my tapestry needle. This was a gift, oh gosh, so many years ago that I love. It's just a little tube and I keep my tapestry needle in there, and that is always in my pouch. What else is in here? Pair of snips, a little thing of bulb markers because that is how I like to mark my rounds on my sock. Always some various stitch stoppers. These just happen to be Boston Terriers. I do keep a row counter in here just in case I am following like a patterned sock. I don't do that very often. And the other two things that are always in my little sock notions pouch is my instructions for my favorite rounded toe. I typed and printed a bunch of these and then just laminated them. And again, I have a piece of washi so I can follow my rows, and I have extra washi on the back in case it eventually gets unsticky to the point that it's unusable. So I have extras on the back. And then I also printed up the instructions for Kitchener stitch, laminated those because no matter how many times I do Kitchener stitch, I can never remember how to do Kitchener stitch. Now on this bag, I have the wooden instructions from Catrinkles. So the only other thing that's in this bag is my rounded toe instructions. And yeah, that just is a much tinier pouch and goes in my knitting bag, and it's ready to go. And I always keep those pouches stocked as well. So if I have multiple socks on the go, which I rarely do, I can just grab another pouch. And again, just a tiny pouch, right? So this one is tiny. This one's slightly bigger, but not super big. Just tiny little pouches. So my tip then is, if you're at a festival or a yarn shop, but I'm assuming if you're going to a yarn shop, you're looking for yarn. But if you're at a festival, and especially for me, I'm not looking to buy a ton of yarn right now. We just did that big stash clean out. I really don't want a lot of yarn, but I want to support some of the makers that are at these festivals, especially if it's a bag maker. I will go and look and see, do they have a cute little notions pouch that I can pick up, right? And then I have them. They're ready to go. They're ready to stock and throw in a project bag when I'm ready to start a new project. So that's another way that you can support a maker at an event if you're not there to buy a bunch of yarn or fiber. Maybe you can pick up a little pouch. They're usually pretty inexpensive. And again, this is perfect to throw in just what I need for a sock and throw it in my sock bag. So I think that's it for knitting. Those are my big knitting essentials. So, you know, every project bag has a pouch. I took my pouch out of here. My extra needles. So this is one of my current whips. It's my tank top. And the pattern is also in here as well. I know a lot of people have gone digital with their patterns. And I do have an iPad mini, but it doesn't hold a charge to save its life. And I do love the apps that I have on there for pattern tracking, because I can just highlight the row that I'm on and just, you know, tick them off. I also have Knit Companion. I'm grandfathered in because I got it when it was not a subscription. But for right now, I've just been printing my patterns because I can highlight things, I can mark things, and then I don't have to travel with another electronic that needs charged. And I can have every pattern in every single project bag that I need. And I only have one iPad mini. So I think that's it for knitting. So my top essentials are my needles, my case, always having a notions pouch packed and ready to go. It's a great way to put all of those extra notions that you have lying around, to put them away. Just pack a couple of notions pouches, stack them in a basket or a bin or a drawer, and they're ready to go. And then you don't have to search for all of that stuff when you're starting that new project. You want to put everything in your, you know, project bag that you've picked out, your yarn, your needles, your notions. It's all ready to go. And then you can take any whip with you with confidence, knowing you have everything you need in that one bag. That's just my tip. So those are my top knitting essentials. Like I said, we all have that stuff just lying around. We all have a ton of little scissors and snips. We all have 1,000,001 tape measures. We all have all of that stuff. So let's move on to crochet. And there are less things in crochet, but I do have a few essentials. So again, the notions pouch doesn't change. Like, you need the same kinds of things, with the exception being the tool, right? So I have found, due to hand issues, that I love the Furls hooks. They have this nice big grip. I can crochet without the hand pain. And so I have collected quite a few in various sizes. I'll catch them when they're on sale, or when they're running, you know, any kind of promotion. These are like the acrylic ones. My favorites are the metal. So I have mostly the metal ones. They're my favorites. They're the smoothest. They go through the yarn the best. Yeah, and I have not as many of each size because I don't crochet often. But what I did find was, when you're looking for an organizer for your crochet hooks, they're not made for these thicker handles, right? This is much thicker than a typical crochet hook. So option number one, I found this cute little sunglasses case, and Brian said, let's just sew right down the middle of both pouches, and then they won't be in there clanking around. So that's what we did. We sewed down the middle, just a little bit, I think from here to here. And so I can fit 2 of my hooks on each side, and then it zips up. And I can throw that in my bag, whatever hooks I might need for my crochet project, and they're in there. They're not banging around, they're not hitting each other, they're not getting damaged. The other one I have is my dear friend Brian, who is Uncle Brian's Bags from At Haynes House Yarns. I asked him if he could make me a custom crochet hook bag for my furls, and he did. I said, make it any kind of girly fun pink. So he chose pink unicorns. And so this is like your knitting, like needle minders that you could like stick your needles in there, zip it closed, and then your project hangs off the outside. But he made it a little bit longer and a little bit wider to accommodate 2 needles or 2 hooks. And so they lay in there opposite, so thick, and then it snaps closed, and I can pop that in my bag as well. I can also hook it to whatever I need. So those are my crochet essentials. The other thing that I always have in a crochet bag is a removable stitch marker, a locking stitch marker of some sort. Actually, I always have a couple. To mark a certain stitch. A lot of times crochet patterns will say, you know, crochet X amount of stitches and place a removable marker on stitch 10 or whatever to remind you to do something. B, to also mark the right side of the fabric if that's something that needs marked, because crochet is pretty much reversible. And so you need to know the right side. But so I keep a bunch of these locking stitch markers. I also love to use Kelsey's stitch markers, because when I get her stitch markers, I always ask for the ones that can be removed, because then they're good for anything. I can mark a stitch in my knitting, I can mark my progress, and I can also use them for crochet. So those are my big crochet essentials. I did make a few notes. Crochet is harder to like plot out. I don't like, yes, you still need all of your crochet hooks that the pattern calls for. So they all go in a notions pouch. Again, with all of the other notions that you need, scissors, tape measure, your locking stitch markers, your tapestry needle, all of that stuff. So those are my big crochet essentials and what I like to use. Like I said, I've tried multiple hooks. These are the ones that I came back to that give me no hand pain. So these are Furls, F-U-R-L-S. I'll link them below. And yeah, the acrylic ones are lighter weight. Again, I don't love them as much. They can be a little more grippy, but I have them. So that's crochet. Let me know if I missed anything. I don't crochet a lot, but that's what I'll have. And I'll still grab my, again, my regular notions pouch, because the only thing that differs really is the hooks versus the needles. So yeah. And then lastly, spinning. For spinning, there are certain things that you absolutely need. So you need a wheel, obviously. And for, I would say a necessity is a Niddy Noddy. If you don't know what a Niddy Noddy is, it's this. This is my Kromsky Niddy Noddy. So this is what I use to take the yarn off of the bobbin after I'm done spinning. So it's all been spun, it's all been plied. I need to make it into a skein. So this is what I use. I like this one because it comes apart. So it's easy to pack in your knitting basket or project bag, if you, or your spinning basket or project bag. And this is a 2-yard Niddy Noddy. So once I have all of my yarn on here and I tie it off, I can just count my wraps, multiply by 2, and that'll give me approximate yardage. It's always going to be slightly stretched because you're winding all around, and so the skein is stretched. It's also going to bloom after you block it, so it's approximate. I always subtract a few yards after it's done. I also have, let me grab it, I forgot to grab it. So for when we are traveling, usually to a show, and I want to take one of my e-spinners with, I bought a travel Niddy Noddy. This is by Katrinkles, and this lets you do 1 yard. So 1 yard would just be those 2. I can do 1.5 yards, or I can also do a 2 yard like my other one. And that just fits all together, but comes apart and packs flat. So that is easy to throw in my travel case for my e-spinner. And then no matter what, I can get my yarn off the bobbin and make it into a skein. And I don't have to worry about it.
Hi guys, editing Tasha here. As I'm editing the video of the essentials, I forgot to mention you can easily and a lot less expensively make your own Niddy Noddy. You just need 3 pieces of PVC piping, and then like the cute little end caps to keep things from, you know, where you've cut it to be rough. There are a ton of YouTube videos out there for how to make your own Niddy Noddy from PVC. I'll see if I can link a couple, but otherwise, yeah, you just need to take your measurements, make the Niddy Noddy of your size using PVC, and it's a much more affordable option if you're a new spinner and just starting out and you know, are on a budget. So I just wanted to pop that in there since I said you could make your own Lazy Kate. I just wanted to let you know you can also make your own Niddy Noddy. So
My other essentials for spinning. When I'm taking my yarn off the bobbin and putting it on the Niddy Noddy, you got to tie it off, right? You got to secure it so that when you dunk it, you don't get a whole big mess. So I always keep some kind of cotton yarn, and you can get this. This is, I think, from Webb's, but you could just get regular like dishcloth cotton yarn at Michael's or your favorite craft store. And I always have a ball of that to make my ties, to tie off my skein so it doesn't turn into a twisted, knotty mess. So I always keep that in a bin. I also buy just some plain tags. This is where I write my info. How many wraps, how many approximate yardage. Excuse me, what else? Oh, like the fiber content, you know, what I spun. And then I also keep a wraps per inch tool, again from Katrinkles. This tells me like the weight once it's plied, and then here is a singles wraps per inch so that I can see, you know, where I'm at for my singles. Do I use these a lot? No. I just rely on my wraps. You know, okay, I got, we'll just say 200 wraps, and it's a 2-yard Niddy Noddy, so that's approximately 400 yards. I always minus a few yards, and I can, once you've spun enough, you can look at your yarn and be like, yeah, that's DK. You get used to it. The other thing that I keep, and I keep this on my tray where I have my 1E spinner, is a notebook. So when I start a new spinning project, like when I'm doing our club yarn, I will write down, like for April, I wrote down that it was April club fiber, what the fiber is, and how I spun it. Did I split it in half lengthwise, or did I just split it in half, you know, the whole braid? What speed did I spin it on? How did I break up each part of that braid? So did I split half into 2s, 4s, 6s, and then the other half, you know, how did I split that? So that I know, you know, how each skein was spun. Again, here's my tag. It just tells me this was May, how many wraps, how many yards, and how many ounces, because that's different, right? It could be 5 ounces, it could be 6 ounces, it could be 3 ounces. So those are, let's see, spinning essentials. My Niddy Noddy, yes. Also, like extra bobbins, you're going to need more bobbins than you think you are. Especially if you want to do multiple plies for every skein. So if you want a 2-ply yarn, you're going to need 3 bobbins, because you're going to need a bobbin for each ply and then an empty bobbin to ply it onto. So if you want a 3-ply, you need 4 bobbins. So I always have at least 6 bobbins for each wheel, so that I always have enough bobbins. You also need a Lazy Kate of some sort. That is what you put your bobbin on to ply it. This is my Lazy Kate. This is from Akerworks, and this will hold 4 bobbins. So those pop up, these lock, and my bobbins go on here, and then I spin from those to ply together onto an empty bobbin, and they pop back down in. nice and flat. And then this is all that needs to go in my spinning travel case. You can also make a lazy Kate. You could get some dowel rods and a basket. And as long as you have something on the end of the dowel rods, you know, you could put, if this is your dowel rod, you could stick it through the holes of your basket. Make sure there's something on each end. Have your bobbins on there and you can ply from that. You could make it for pennies. You could go to the dollar store and buy, you know, a small basket that's holy that you can pop the dowel rods in, put your bobbins on there and spin from that. You could make one really, really, really inexpensively. What else? You do need that. I also always have an extra break band, just because they tend to just wear out, right? Like they're constantly being spun through and they rip. So I always have extra break band cord twisted up in with my wheels, especially my e-spinners, because that's what I travel with. And I think that may be it, guys. I think I touched on everything. This was not an easy one to write notes for because I feel like we all have the same like notions, right? Everyone's going to have their tape measures and their scissors and their, you know, needles. And I also always keep, I don't know where it is, but like I had in my tray beside my seat, these little needle, what are they called? Like a stitch rescue, whatever. I have a couple of these and I have some that's like a crochet hook on one end, but a knitting needle on the other. And I think I've just picked them up various places. I think I even actually got a couple at like a Dollar Tree or a dollar store where you can just throw this in your bag as well for a drop stitch. So those, I have one of those in every notions pouch as well, because you never know. It's not as big a deal for crochet because I guess technically you can't drop a stitch in crochet. You're just gonna unravel it, and it's not as scary as when you drop a stitch in knitting. Crochet is much less scary to rip out and redo because you're only losing the stitches that you rip out. You're not potentially losing hundreds of stitches. But I think that's it. Like I said, my biggest tip is always keep a notions pouch or a couple notions pouches filled and ready to go. It's a great way to store all of those extra things that you have accumulated. You know, put one of each in a couple of pouches. You could even use a Ziploc bag, guys. If you don't have a bunch of pouches, use a Ziploc bag. Always have a couple ready to go. Then you never have to worry about, oh, I grabbed my sweater to go on this day trip, but I didn't bring my notions pouch, and now I need to separate for sleeves, and I have nothing to put my sleeves on. I've been there. And then if you stop because you can't move on because you don't have what you need, then you're not knitting, right? My other biggest tip, if you are a sock knitter, is to make a couple of the smaller notions pouches that you need for your sock, because they fit in the small sock bags. And if all I want to take is my sock and I'm ready to cast off and Kitchener my toe shut, everything I need is in there. I don't have to stop and say, oh, well, I'm to the toes and I need to close them, but I didn't bring, you know, I don't have a tapestry needle. Always have that. So I hope that helped. Let me know if you have any questions. I will link my Niddy Noddy. This is from Akerworks, and the crochet hooks from Furls. These are from Mabel, but she doesn't sell a lot of these online. They're mostly at in-person shows. So I'll link the makers that I can, that you could readily get stuff for. Yeah, again, I think this organizer is only available at the Magpie store. I don't think they sell these online. I'll do some research. But anyway, I hope that was helpful. We are prepping for a show this weekend. We leave tomorrow to go to Virginia, so hopefully we'll see some of you there. I'm going to try to vlog the weekend and see if maybe we have less chaos, that I can vlog the entire experience for you and post that as an extra video. But otherwise, I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that you picked up an extra tip or two. And yeah, maybe you can use some of those tips to get your knitting or crochet or spinning bag a little more tidy and a little more streamlined. So let me know your thoughts down below. Also, let me know, again, if you have other ideas for episodes. I've been jotting down notes of other creators that I'm watching, especially fiber content creators, and their different episodes, and jotting down, you know, oh, okay, I like watching that, so therefore maybe I could do my own version of that. So I'm trying to be better about that. I also have a YouTube notebook. So I have a notebook for everything. But other than that, I hope that you're all having an amazing week. I hope that we see some of you this weekend at the show, at the Virginia Fiber Fest. Please remember to take care of yourselves, take care of each other, be kind, spread a little love. I will be back here and see you next week, same time, same place. And until then, happy making.